of our Atlanta child murder series. We'll be discussing the stories of Angel Lenair and Jeffrey Mathis. Let's get into it. Now, as we dive into the third series, it is important for us to note some of our disclaimers regarding this series. These events did occur some 40 plus years ago. Thus, information concerning these cases is quite limited. It is also important to note that Wayne Williams has in fact been convicted of 2 of the 29 murders, and the ATL police and FBI have determined the remaining cases closed as of the final conviction of Wayne Williams, although one of the cases tonight we will discuss has not been declared under the Wayne Williams case. So we'll go into that. Viewer discretion is in fact advised, and these stories are quite disturbing. And finally, please keep in mind the purpose of this series. It is to maintain continued awareness of these crimes and also to help aid in solving at least some of these murders, as many of these victims were under the age of 10 and were so decomposed that the causes of death have never been uncovered. Also, keep in mind that the state of Georgia has recently opened these cases again and is currently using newfound technology, including DNA testing and other means of forensic science, in aiding the reinvestigations of these cases. Let's get into Angel Lenair's case. Now, there seemed to be a moment, from what appeared to be a bit of a lull or break between the previous child disappearance and this one. Although the city and nation at this point were on a high alert due to no additional cases in the few months, some began to feel a little bit more at ease, and the ease sadly came to a violent halt on Tuesday, March 4th, 1980. Now, 12-year-old Angel Latrice Lenair, standing at about 5'4" and weighing 90 pounds, lived at 1660 Stanton Road Southwest. She attended Venetian Hills Elementary. Her mother, Venus Caroline Taylor, worked at the Mahogany Club on Campbellton Road in Georgia as a cocktail waitress, and her father was Richard Lenair. She had a sister, Rhonda Taylor, and one brother, Robert Dale Taylor. Her grandparents were Scotty and Glavinia Withers. On Tuesday, March 4th, 1980, 12-year-old Angel Lenair finished her homework and left her apartment in Southwest Atlanta wearing a denim outfit around 4 p.m. Sadly, she was last seen leaving her friend's house after watching her favorite TV show, Sanford and Son. Her mother, Venus Taylor, called the police after Angel had not returned home in a timely fashion. On March 10th, 1980, Angel Lenair's body was found in a wooded lot on Campbellton Road at the intersection of Willowbrook Southwest, 3 blocks from her apartment. She was found in the clothes she left home in. Someone's underwear, not belonging to Angel, were located in her mouth, and an electrical cord was bound around her hands. The cause of death listed as asphyxiation by ligature strangulation. Now, 2 men were questioned in this case, one of which wore a belt fashioned of electrical cord and had been arrested previously for grabbing a child. This man lived at 1720 Beechwood Road. A relative of his lived at 1596 Willowbrook, and it is suspected that she was held in the homes of 1954 Beecher and or 1415 West Ridge. But no further information has come forth from this, and Lenair's case is still considered unsolved. Now, police did claim to be baffled at this particular case because it seemed quite different than the previous cases, in that the victim was a female and that her body was found in under different circumstances than the previous male victims. Now, the 2 men questioned were eventually cleared of this murder. Her funeral was Wednesday, March 19th, 1980, at 2:30 p.m. at St. Mark AME Church on Campbellton Road. with her remains in state from 10 a.m. and Dr. C.E. Wells officiating. She was buried in the Lincoln Cemetery. Visitation was 7 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday at Alfonso Dawson Mortuary at 3000 Martin Luther King Drive, Southwest. Now, let's go ahead and get into the story of Jeffrey Mathis. These two stories are quite close because the very next day after Angel's body was found, Jeffrey Mathis, age 10, had left his home to buy cigarettes for his mother in the early evening. Like Yusuf Bell, Jeffrey would never return from his errand, which was only a few blocks away from his home. His mother, Willie Mae Mathis, became worried when he was gone for over an hour and sent her other sons to look for him. Later that night, a patrolman told Miss Mathis to call the missing persons department if he did not come home by the morning. When she did not immediately understand is that when she contacted the department the next day, that the missing persons department at the time and the Atlanta Police Department, as well as many other major cities at the time, did very little to investigate the disappearance of young people, particularly Black young people. It was assumed that children and teenagers were runaways and not victims of foul play. Particularly, Black children were assumed to be runaways or scoundrels. And so they didn't assume that they were victims of foul play, even if they were 10 or 11 years old. Now, Jeffrey Lamar Mathis was about 4'8" and weighed about 71 pounds, lived at 471 East Ontario in the West End neighborhood with his mother, Willie Mae Mathis, brothers Ronald, Reginald, Frederick, another older brother, and sisters Valerie and Wanda. Willie Mae had worked at the Peachtree Center as a maid and as a tape winder at a microfilm company. Her father was a truck driver. Jeffrey's father, William Pappy Mathis, worked in a cemetery burial office as a watchman and sadly was murdered there in 1974 during a robbery. He had 7 children. Jeffrey attended Joel Chandler Harris Elementary and sometimes carried groceries for customers at Kroger on Cascade Road. Jeffrey Mathis was last seen leaving the Star service station on Gordon to buy cigarettes or a loaf of bread. That is a question that was had about what he was actually purchasing, but we do know he was at least purchasing some cigarettes. He was wearing gray jogging pants, brown shoes, and a white-green shirt. The barber, William Williams, on the corner of Gordon and East Ontario, saw Mathis knock on his window. A month later, he saw a girl who said she saw him get into a blue car with a light-skinned man and a dark-skinned man on East Ontario next to a silver fire plug near Anderson's Produce. So this is just some of the eyewitness accounts that claim that they saw him. Now, Jeffrey also had last been seen by a friend who claimed he was getting into the back seat also of a blue car, possibly a Buick. 13 days after Mathis had gone missing, Willie Taylor, who had recognized Mathis's picture from a newspaper, claimed that he saw Jeffrey get into a blue Nova car driven by a white adult man. Willie Taylor also told police that the man he had seen with Mathis had later in the week pulled a gun on him before taking off in his car. Now, police did little in response to this information given by Turner. The report was filed away and forgotten. The blue car that was earlier seen by Mathis' friend in connection with Jeffrey's disappearance was very similar to the description of a car seen by an eyewitness in a later disappearance case of a boy named Aaron White. Now, Jeffrey Mathis's 2 brothers had also reported seeing a blue Buick in the driveway of a house that Jeffrey frequented often. Now, interestingly, shortly after Mathis's disappearance, boys from his school had complained to their principal that 2 Black men in a blue car had attempted to lure them away from the schoolyard. The youngsters had memorized the license plate and reported it to police. Once again, police did little to investigate this matter. I want you to keep in mind from our second episode when we talked about Yusef and how he had been at a boys' club and he had been seen. He was attending a boys' club, and also that he had been seen last by his neighbor getting into a blue car. So, this blue car, I really believe, is very important and quite vital in a lot of these cases. Now, sadly, the body of Jeffrey Mathis was found in a briar covered patch of woodlands near Suber and Cascade Road, near Campbellton Road, by FBI agents with trained dogs. The state did not attribute Mathis's murder, however, to Wayne Williams, and this case still does remain unsolved to this day. Now, the funeral was held Saturday, February 21st, 1981, at West Hills Presbyterian Church, on Gordon Road, Southwest, and remains were held at the Hogbrooks Funeral Home. Very, very sad cases here, guys. And if you or anyone you know has any information that can help in the solving of these cases, you are encouraged to contact the Georgia Bureau of Investigation as well as the Atlanta Police Department. You can remain anonymous. Until next time, we'll talk about our next cases.